أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. Welcome everyone on to our session 3 for Quranic Psychology and Psychoethics Sufi Enneagram study group session. Our focus today is on actually one of the Salika, as Aisha, I think she asked this question. So I thought I have to address this because this is a main question. This is the justice, the established justice, which is, she's saying, well, how do we establish justice inside us? So that is a bigger question. So I thought I have to address that. So that's why I have 2 slides on it. But so that is main focus today's discussion. And then I look into the symbol of Enneagram briefly, because as you know, Enneagram is a tool which we have to use for our self-renewal, but without knowing the science of the soul, the ilm nafs, we will not be effectively using the tool. So that's why in our revised curriculum or revised outline, we have focused on this Quranic Psychology book, and that is the one we have been talking in the last 2 sessions, and it will continue. We have 15 module. So I actually doubled the total number of sessions. Originally, our target was to do 10 sessions. We are now doing almost 15 sessions, or even more, I think. So we have divided into primary and secondary 2 sets of sessions. So anyway, so here we'll be talking Enneagram and how we will be focusing on to achieve the this going to the center. What is the goal and what is the process? What is the concept of a space? So a bit of touching on Enneagram, because that will tell us why you have to read the Quranic psychology. So, and then we will go into a bit of discussions with the Quranic psychology again and 4 humors. So that is our total target today. So now I will talk about this particular verse in Quran, which we hear every day, in every Jummah. I think Umar ibn Abdulaziz started this, and he ordained all his kingdom, every imam to read this ayah. And it's so important because his focus at that time was justice in the society. But it talks about justice in self as well, because that's what first thing he asked for. This is the verse, Inna Allaha ya'muru bil adl wal ihsan wa ita'i dhil qurba وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. You see, يعظكم, Allah is giving the words. He is telling us to do this so that we remember. So we have to remember that justice is why we have been sent here for. And here he's explaining the justice, which is basically doing of good. Doing of good. That's what he's saying. And then generosity, ihsan. Justice and ihsan, this the doing good. Ita zil qurba. That is the first thing, who are close to you. So who is closer than my nafs? My nafs is the closest to me. And that's why you have to look after yourself first before you do anything else. And that is main focus I wanted to mm, the highlight. He forbids all that is shameful and all that runs counter to reason. So that's how we bring the justice, just to avoid shameful stuff and anything counter to reason, whatever is munkar. So, and then envy. Here he's talking about buggy, envy, but another meaning is oppression. So he exhorts you repeatedly so that you might bear in this mind. So here I looked into Corpus website, the Quran, corpus.quran website, and there I searched this verse, this particular root. It is mentioned 14 times as a verb, 14 times as a noun. And all verses, of course, if you look at, I'll just go into the site in a minute. Um, Three verses I pointed out that is talking about justice in the self. In Quran, talking about um, فَلَا تَتَّبِعُوا الْهَوَىٰ أَن تَعْدِلُوا. Don't follow your own desires. You remember we discussed in our last session about two kuwa Allah gave us as a part of 7 constitutions. One is kuwatul shahwaniya, another is kuwatul qadabiyya. Why Allah gave those? So that we can sustain the individuality, sustain the species. So first thing is kuwatul shahwaniya, the desires which attracts to pleasure, attraction to pleasure. Yeah, with that gives us motivation. That gives us to do things. But if we do too much of it, that's when we have to do break. And that is the opposite one, which is the Quwwatul Ghadabiyya. So we'll touch on that again. And then my focus here is to understand this, why Adam was praying this verse, this prayer, Rabbana Zolamna Anfusana, right? Why he said, I did zulum, I did oppression to my nafs, our nafs. We did oppression to our nafs because he disobeyed Allah. He has been asked not to go near to this shajara, but he not only gone to it and he picked a fruit which was forbidden for him. So whenever we go against the order of Allah, that's when we do the zulum. That's when we do the oppression. That's when we do the injustice to our nafs. And then, as you know, Hazrat Yunus alayhi salam, he actually gone to, left his job. Basically, he was given prophethood to 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 actually invite people to Allah, but no one is listening to him. So he gave up. He gave up, and then he ran away. And then he realized that he is doing zulum to his nafs. And then he started praying this. The La ilaha illa anta subhanaka inni kuntu minaz zalimin. So I became zalim. So that's what again he realized that he's doing zulum, injustice to his soul. And as per that one, why he's doing zulum? Because he get this too much of his this kuwa, other kuwa. Kuwatul shahwaniya, one, if you drink too much, if you eat too much, if you do anything too much, is bad, right? Because that is pulling you towards eating, towards piling the wealth, towards anything more, right? That is the Quwwatul Shahwaniya pull you, and then also Quwwatul Ghadabiyya will pull, which is was in the case of Yunus alayhi salam. In Quran it says that Ijnada huwa magzoom. When he was calling Allah, Sahibul Hut. This is in Surah Qalam. Um, um, Allah is mentioning Yunus, how did he do zulum on himself? He was calling Allah with anger. That's not what we are supposed to do. So that's what is also relating to giving me hints about justice inside, justice with our soul. So, and then of course, I'll go through some of the verses here, which I said I'll go to that website. And here is the website, that's 16.90. I got into this word. Uh, okay, it's 16.90, not 89. So this is a very good website, as you know. So if you go to this Adl, why it is going to 89? It's supposed to go to 16.90. 90. Go. Yeah, that one. Bil Adl. If you go here, and then if you go dictionary, and then you find all this ayah. As you see, 14 times a verb and 14 times noun. So to be just, and it's showing all these verses. The same word means so many things here. As you see here, you can do justice, deal justly, and deviate. This is the one I was talking about. The tattabiul hawa, fala tattabiul hawa, and ta'dilu. So if you follow your hawa, you deviate from justice. That's what we needed to ponder as a part of our self-renewal. If we do listen too much to Hawa, then we will be doing injustice to our soul. But of course, Hawa is there to save the species, to save the individual. We will not have any motivation if we don't have the Hawa. But don't make Hawa as your Lord. There are many other verses about Hawa. We'll talk about this when we do this analysis in the Enneagram. There are a lot of Rumi story to apply on that Enneagram, how too much versus too less being the imbalance. So here is another verse which I wanted to mention. This is the verse, Alladhi khalaqaka fasawwaka fa'adalak. So here he gave adl. He said we thought adl means our shakal, our construction. But here this meaning is that he make a balance. So when we are born, we have a balance in us, in our body, in our nafs. Of course, Ruh is the purest, but nafs, as we discussed, as soon as Ruh entered into the body, nafs was born, and nafs has all those things we mentioned. And so, but that's all balanced when we are born. So if we are born, we have no defect, then we should maintain, of course, that balanced state. That is our justice to our nafs. Of course, you can say there are a lot of birth defect. What is their job? Their job is Allah has something special for them. That's why they come with defect. But we park their part later, but we are focusing on our part. The people who have been given this particular sawiya, fasawaka fa'adalak, which is Allah gave us balanced state when we are born. So we have to maintain that balanced state. That is the justice. So that's what my focus in this particular uh, verse I wanted to touch. Um, so the other part I wanted to mention was those seven constituents in our last session we mentioned. Quwwatul Shahwaniya, Quwwatul Ghadabiyya. If we do not balance in these two kuwa, we do injustice. And how we can balance, we'll discuss about it, because all these four elements, the one in our body, um, and then the qualities of those elements, the hot, dry, hot, wet, cold, wet, and cold, dry. This particular quality of those elements bring the flow of energy within us. The way, the flow of energy happen outside in the world, how cyclone happen, how summer bring the rain, how hot air go up and cold air, and as a result, rain comes. Um, those sort of things, and how the water become vapor, and then it comes as a cloud, and then it become cold, and rain comes. So all those things happen outside the flow of energy. Same thing happen inside in our body. But of course, balancing is the way nature is doing balancing. We have to do the balancing. So of course, the way cyclone happens in the outside, cyclone can happen in our body and mind too. So those sort of things is realization we have to have as a part of this study we are doing. So what I wanted to even touch again is this bit. Um, this bit, what I was wanted to inform is this particular ayah, the fear. Be just, that is near to righteousness, and fear Allah. Indeed, Allah is acquainted with what you do. This is another verse which we actually, I wanted to touch this 5:8. What is that one? 5:8. Um, this one. Oh, Adilu huwa akrabu littaqwa wattaqu. This is the one basically, because there is no excuse. He's saying that um, if you do justice, then you develop this consciousness. That is our target, right? We want to develop taqwa in us. If we do justice to our soul, that's when we get to that. You see here, he's talking about, O you who have believed, be persistently standing firm for Allah. Kunu qawwamina lillahi shuhada'a bil qist. Witness injustice. And do not let the hatred of a people prevent you from being just. Do you see that? This hatred is the main problem which comes. The shana'an. That is the one. Inna sha'niyaka, the shana'an, the people who do shana'an, they call shania. Yeah. So innaka shan in abundance, this surah inna atayna, they are talking about the people who do shana'an, right? So this is the one he said that hatred of people prevent you from being just. So we have to remove hatred. Otherwise, we will fall into injustice. And once we can do that, that's when we can get closer to taqwa. This is what my learning from this verse. Why justice we have to do? Of course, to develop the consciousness in us, so that we develop money, of course, we achieve our goal of tahqiq, the one we mentioned. But one of the way we can do is remove shana'an or reduce shana'an. If we have too much of it, it's bad. And the other one I already mentioned, which we discussed in our slide, those two things. One is the doing good and generosity. That's another way. Itaya dhil qurba, the people close to you, your relatives, your wife, your children, anyone who is near and dear to you, to give whatever Allah gave to you, sharing your gift from Allah is what you bring justice to yourself. And that is what action you needed to do to bring justice. And that is the main message. And I will just read one of the quotations in Quranic Psychology book, where there is a quotation about from Al-Farabi, who was one of the philosopher of Islamic medieval, and what he was very famous. He said that philosopher's role in relation to society with a physician role in relation to body. The body's health is affected by the balance of its humors, just as the city is determined by the moral habits of its people. So the philosopher's duty, he says, is to establish a virtuous society by healing the souls of the people. So that is what the healing the souls of the people he is emphasizing in his that quotation. And he's saying that establishing justice and guiding them towards true happiness. So that we will come to it, that how we balance this, and the physicians have to do this, uh, you know, to bring balance of its humors. So humors, it's a literal thing actually. I'll come back to it later because I do have a slide on it. So how do we bring justice? Now we have a clue, right? This is for Aisha, but unfortunately, Aisha is not in here today, right?
I'm here.
Oh, yes, yes, Aisha. This was for you. Lecture
Yeah,
I included because I wanted to respond this because I thought this is a very core of the question of why we are doing this course. So,
yeah. And
yes,
one of the things I was also seeing what's happening in the world,
yes,
um, it all starts from one person bringing justice to ourselves, then we can bring it into the world, right? The microcosm of macrocosm. So it's
y-
very important.
yes,
Thank you for,
Alhamdulillah. Yeah, yeah. So because I thought that without this, then our motivation will be lower. I should address this first before I go into deeper. So, and here I have another slide which I have taken again from Quranic Psychology book. And as you see here, here, she's saying, we know that our self consists of a physical body that is used as an instrument for our soul, our nafs, right? So soul and spirit, and it's an instrument, as you know. And our goal is to establish a balance between the physical, psychic, and spiritual aspect of ourself, a middle way and justice. And she has mentioned this verse, وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا لِتَكُونُوا شُهَدَاءَ عَلَى النَّاسِ وَيَكُونُ الرَّسُولُ عَلَيْكُمْ شَهِيدًا. So that, um, yeah, this shuhada, لتكونوا شهداء على الناس ويكون الرسول عليكم شهيدا. So there are the two witnessing we can do by bringing this wasata, wasatiya, or middle way, following the middle way, we can bring the justice to our physicality, our mentality, and also our ruh, nafs. So mainly, what is the technique? Following the middle way. Not too much, not too less, just in the middle. And that is what he's saying. And in that way, we will achieve our this bearing witness. Yeah. Thus, we have made you middle community, and you may be witnesses to humanity, and that the messenger be a witness to you. So by taking this wasatiya, the middle way, of course, we are doing the job basically. That job we have been asked to do as a believer. Justice is the result of following the middle way, the straight path, the balance, and is one of its main characteristics. It is both a means and a goal of self purification and development and evolution of becoming of ourself. So, as you see here, and also balanced mejas, an equitable or equable, a balanced temperament is where the contrary qualities are present to exact as possible equal degrees of potency. So all the qualities, virtues versus vices, to bring uh, those in us in a balanced way, that will bring us. It's not only virtues versus vices, even he's talking about four humors, those which are physical thing. To when you're feeling hot, you take a cold shower. That's simple. That sort of things. He is set ready on the straight path leading to God. He's set ready on the straight path leading to God. So this is how God sent us. He said, when we have been sent, we were ready. We were ready to go on the straight path. His further progress in his life journey depends upon his own performance and sincerity of purpose, so that some serve God as though they see him, and others serve him as though he sees them. This is the one that um, hadith say Nawafil, right? This ka'annaka tara. فَعْبُدُوهُ كَأَنَّكَ تَرَاهُ. So you pray to him as if you see him, right? His progress to the former way from later is what constitutes the highest virtue. So, and highest virtue, ihsan, is the justice we have to seek to bring into our life. Learning from Prophet is another way to bring justice, to take Prophet as a model, because he is the one who perfected his life. As a result, God has given him this verse, Al-Yawma akmaltu lakum dinukum wa atmamtu alaykum rahmat. Yeah, wa atmamtu alaykum. Yeah, that particular verse. Laqad kana lakum fi Rasulullah uswatun hasana. This uswatun hasana is the model, the beautiful model. That is the one. If we take it, then of course we bring justice. And then the concept of a good person connotes not only that he must be good in the general social sense understood, but that he must also first be good to himself and not to be unjust to himself. If he were unjust to himself, how can be really be just to others? And this is Attas, this Malaysian philosopher. Um, he is saying this: the concept of a good person connotes not only that he must be good in the general social sense understood. So to be good is to be just. So that is the focus. So with that note, I move now to our this particular slide, which is basically we'll go into a little bit of um, review of the Sufi Enneagram, the symbol itself. So we'll be touching on space. There is the five elements to understand the symbol. One of the element is space. So what is that in the Enneagram? That's what we will be talking. Before we go into space, we need to understand the idea of center versus origin. So this we discussed in our previous sessions, I think, but I am just revising it quickly so that we are going into space, which has an invisible boundary, which is a circle. But in our diagram, Enneagram diagram, as you see here, there is a circle. So that circle is the one here is saying that where is the wisdom that is hidden in the scene? Everything in the world, everything in the scene has a root in the world of unseen. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, just look wherever you see, aynama tawallu, fathamma wajhillah. So wajhillah is everywhere, right? And that's where all the wisdoms are. And that's where all the signs of where Allah is there. And what is our learning there, right? And he's saying it is within the circle of the unseen. So there is an unseen circle, which is of course first of all our own boundary. You know, we have a surface of our body, skin. That is first boundary of our body. And then of course we have a subtle body. It has its boundary. Then microcosm has a macrocosm, because our counterpart, I'll touch into it in a minute. So, and everything has its boundary. And that is the circle we are talking about. Know that what we call God's deputy, the spirit, which is inside us, is the center of the circle of all existence. That is the thing, because my Ruh is part of the total existence. And that's what, of course, saying that that is at the center, and that center has a circle. God entrusted it with this honored state because he knew its potential to rule in justice within the domain of each individual human being. God entrusted it with this honored state because he knew its potential to rule in justice. As you see again, we have to rule in justice within the domain of each individual human being. So we have to rule in justice. And this particular quotation is taken from Tadbiratul Ilahiyya. And these words are Hazrat Ibn Arabi's words. Hazrat Ibn Arabi is saying this, that no, this is Ayalamu. Most of the his teachings, he alert us, know that what we call God's deputy, Khalifa, the spirit, the Ruh, is the center of the circle of all existence. And that's what he's saying in the Tadbiratul Ilahiyya. So page 34 of that book, brother Nadir Khan showed on our, yeah, if you open that page 34, you see that he's talking about it in page 34. So, and then he's saying that God entrusted it with this honored state because he knew. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knew that its potential to rule in justice within the domain of each individual human being. What moved the Lord to make it his deputy was this quality of justice. Yeah, this quality of justice which is built into us, the sense of fairness, just and fairness is built into us. So that is what gave us Ashraful Makhlukat. We discussed this particular nobility, tashrif, before in our first session, I think. Instead, God took the spirit from the circumference and placed it at the center of the sphere. The proof of the characteristics of justice at the center is that all the radii from the center to the points to circumference are equal. If a circle is to be drawn, the center is an absolute necessity. Thus, the center is the cause of the circle. No matter how big a circle or sphere be, its measurement depends upon the center. The circle exists because of its center. The center is the guide, the commander. This is the commander, the nafs al-ammara, the ego self we have. That, of course, has this quwwatul shahwaniya and quwwatul ghadabiyya. But of course, when we say commander, Ibn Arabi's prayer, he praying this, inni as'aluka Allahumma, inni as'aluka billahu zit tadbir. Oh Allah, keeps my divine self, this mudabbir power, governing power, um, bil nasute sit taskhir. The nasutiya, the nasutiya, which is our earthly self, human nature, zit taskhir, the subservient. So that is the one. This here we needed to make our Nasutiya, but this commander is the Lahutiya. That's what we have to convert. As soon as we can do that, then we can bring justice. And then, of course, this one is, what is the goal? We already discussed this before, but I am just quickly touching on it because we are reviewing Enneagram, how it talks about bringing justice. Goal is to become zero, a fair and just person. And as we mentioned, there is another verse we said, be those who firmly stand in justice, right? Kunu kawamina bil qist. So that is the one, of course, we are highlighting by using courage, wisdom, just managing the self-esteem, we bring the justice at the center. And that is so if we have too much of hypocrisy, and if we have too much of greed, we will have hypocrisy. If we have less of knowledge, less of wisdom, we will have ignorance. And then, so we have to do various line, how we actually apply it. When we have too much anger, how you control it and how you make it lower. So that those are the path we have to follow. We will come back to it, the process. Yeah. So here, replacing negative traits with the positive traits. Sufi Enneagram is the art form, a reflection of this spirit takes place. So this is where we will see which number I am at the moment. On the circumference is our mind body construct. So on this circumference where we are, how far we are on this line, this is the lifeline, our justice. So from how far we are from the center, that is the measurement we will take depending on which quality or which vices affecting me at the moment. So that's what in our meditation or our behavior will tell us where we are. And on that basis, we will be able to identify which number we will be. So we will be any number at any time. That is the hal. So hal will be identified and various actions will be taken so that we achieve one station after another station. So, but hal is what we will be always watching. Okay, that's why we have to ask every day, Kaifa haluka, because that's what we will be working on with that diagram. Anyway, we'll come to see the immutable principles of heavenly origin and their application to different moments of time and space. That is the one. You see here, immutable principles of heavenly origin and their application in different moments of time and space in this art form. In this art form, we will apply those immutable principles of heavenly origin, and then we will know where we are. Say if we have too much of hypocrisy, or if we have too much of anger, or if we have too much of greed, how we'll fix it. That's what our struggle is, and that's what we will be doing. um, how we'll manage our patience, how we'll deal with our ego, um, how our that's what we will be talking about. I was reading this book, I mentioned before, um, Ibn Arabi book Ruhul Quddus. In there, Ibn Arabi was actually um, um talking to his own soul. This kitab is called Munasahatin Nafs, or Muhasabatin Nafs. So here, um, basically, he's saying that he said, I want to inform you, my friend, of something which is unexpectedly happened between me and my soul. I saw my soul in this world as imprisoned, masjuna, and overwhelmed, makhura. I am, as you know, my friend, one of those who asserts that the soul is existent, and it is never permissible in my mind to say that it can die in relation to its qualities because of my knowledge concerning its realities and its place. So at one stage, uh, of course, his soul was arguing with him on various things, and he said that until God was gracious to me through a vision I witnessed. So in that vision, he got an wisdom, and he said that through this I gained victory over my soul. He's talking about struggle, jihad. So in every struggle or jihad, you either win or you lose. So our objective is to win, and that's what Ibn Arabi is mentioning. He actually used this word. Um, Ela an lutfullah bi beruya. Allah has given me a vision by His grace, and then wajadtu beha al zifr ala nafsi. So I was looking for this word, what this zifr means. Um, it means victory. So he's Ibn Arabi is saying that I won a victory over my nafs. Do you see? I gained victory over my nafs and applied the balance. And he said, "Wa ikamatil wazan alayha." Ikamatin wazan. Wazan is the balance. So that is our objective, to bring balance. And if you need, you just read this book. I'll send you the link of this Ruhul Quddus book. He has so many stories because his nafs is arguing with him. At one stage, yeah, I think I will mention this story he mentioned in there. One of the thing, Itaya Dhil Qurba, give the closest person to you, which is your nafs. Uh, there was an argument Ibn Arabi had with his nafs. His nafs is saying, okay, wise Karani and Khalaj, these two awliya Allah, two beloved of Allah, which has higher station. And his nafs is saying Khalaj is the highest station. Why? Okay, for 7 days, both of them were fasting, and both of them were hungry to the highest level. And suddenly food appeared, and Halaj is about to took the food, about to put into his mouth. Another beggar came and said that, hey, I am hungry for 8 days. He said that, okay, take it. So Ibn Arabi Naf saying, you see, he gave it up. He gave it to uh, whole food to, so he sacrificed. So he is more মানে মানে আক্রাকুম কি আকরাম আল্লাহ আতকাকুম, he is more conscious and taqwa then. And then what happened is the same thing happened to wise Karni. When he was about to eat, a beggar came. He ate the 1 or 2 bites and then gave the rest to the guy. So because he ate it, he is selfish. Who? Wise Karni. Ibn Arabi is saying, hey, you missed the point. He's saying that who did the justice? Wise Karni did the justice because Wise Karni treated his nafs and the nafs which presented before him equally. He didn't give more to him. He gave first bite because that is what he needed, because that was his closest. That's why Ibn Arabi in that book saying that Wise Karani has the higher station than Halaj. So these are the type of subtle things he discusses to understand our soul. So anyway, this is another story about um, how we actually use the Enneagram. So he's showing this diagram, which is the spirit, heart, and one side is passion, which will pull us towards it. As you know, we said kuwatu shahwaniya, that is given to us, but we have been given intellect, akal, qalb. And whereas the mystical dimension of Islam is most often described by the spiritual journey, the moral dimension is described as a struggle, the greater struggle, jihad al-akbar, struggle within. The Sufis describe the greater struggle as a struggle between reason and passions. You see, this is the struggle. Again, to bring justice, you needed to have a struggle. And if you have a struggle, you either win or lose. But of course, if you are a real fighter, you'll keep fighting until you win. So this is what the fight is about, reason and passion. And the way Ibn Arabi is giving all this example. For the attention of the heart, reasons guides the spiritual heart towards the consciousness. So these are the how you deal with your struggle. Of course, the way Ibn Arabi convinced his soul, same way we have to convince our soul that you are not the boss. I am the boss. The passions, nafs al-ammara, animal soul, turn the heart away from consciousness by using willpower to serve the ego. The passions veil the consciousness, conscience. Passions veil the conscience. So our conscience, our vivek, our, right and wrong, especially when anger comes, it get blinded. And then when you have too much passions of greed, all the black spot keep coming on our heart. As a result, it become gashwa. They call gashwa. Yeah, the Allah says, I cover their heart. As a result, they can't sense that they are doing bad things, and then they think they are doing good things. Just like Israelis think that they are doing good thing. They're killing all these animals. So because they are blinded, their heart is blinded. So that's what the passions. And they need more land, they need more money. They already own the whole world, but they want to still want to control it. So anyway, now we'll go into the concept of space. So what is the space? The space, as you see here, a sense of place. So you need a space because, as you see here, physical space. Their body, as I mentioned in our, I think, last class possibly, that substance, which is Zawhar, which is our Ruh, need a space, time and space to manifest in the Zahir. So as a result, they needed to have a space and and of course time. And that's how when our angel brought the Ruh and blown into the mother's womb, they gave this Hayat, Maut, Rizq, Daulat, all these four things. So this Hayat, how long I will have the life here, and when the mouth will come. So that is time and space. So, and that's what this is talking about, that moral healing occurs within the Sufi Enneagram when one senses where one is on the sign. So am I 8 minus or am I 4 plus? Am I 2 minus or 7 plus? So this is what I needed to understand. So a space is basically on this diagram where my state is. Seeing the sign as a container, within that contains the self. So I am just seeing myself within this boundary. One takes an accounting of one's virtues and vices, or positive and negative traits, by becoming familiar with the inner place. So that inner place within bracket, which is of course virtual space, but we are projecting it in a kind of a diagram, so that we gave a boundary, which is our body versus our subtle body. So still we have a boundary, we are not infinite. So we, within that boundary, where we are in terms of our mental state or our physical state. So that is what the space is. It gives you a makan, which is a place, does not have a tangible existence, but exists in the consciousness of the beholder. So you are the beholder. So in your mind, you know who visually perceives physical boundaries, while the intellect perceives the soul and the spirit as a contained, defined within the boundaries. So this is one of the thinking we have to do as a part of learning Enneagram when we do muhasaba. You know those um, muraqaba, mushahada, um, um, and then of course we have to do mujahada. So we'll go into those aspects to discern all these subtle things in us. That is the development we are doing. That is the self-awareness we are developing by studying this Quranic psychology. So I will touch base little bit on this uh, because we are not here on our own. We are here. We are microcosm and macrocosm. So we are integrated. That's what we cannot leave. In one of my session, I said even sunrise, moonrise has an effect on us, and even the cycle of the moon has an effect on us. Even as you know, the cycle of the moon has a this the tidal wave. When in the ocean waves come, that is linked to moon's rising versus moon setting. So so those sort of things, just like where the position of the earth with respect to the sun in its orbit also matters. So for example, if you are in London and I am in here, Australia, I am enjoying the summer and you are enjoying the winter. Why is that? Because of the position of the earth you are sitting versus I am sitting. So that is the correspondence. Here we need to understand the Enneagram, my macrocosmic versus microcosmic. So here the spirit moves ascending, descending, and then horizontal. Spirit in the night hour, as I mentioned in one of that verse, that our nafs go back to barzakh, and it come back. But when it go back to barzakh, of course, it goes to higher part of us. And then when it comes back to the same body, body is here, right, in this earth. So that is that it moves within the cosmos. And here, this is a zodiac sign, 12 zodiac. That triangle has that three corner, right? So you have a here 12 corner. Each has this zodiac signs. As you see, Libra is the balanced sign where hot, wet feature of air, but this Libra sign is this pointer. It has a 12 pointer. So those those triangle, if you move, so all of these positions you can be on. So which position you are on and where it is moving, that's what you needed to understand. I don't have much knowledge on the astrology versus astronomy, but we need to generally understand to understand this space. In spiritual development and moral healing, spaces within the form and body, what flows through them are of more significance than shapes or organs. So flowing, the flow of energy, how it flows, we needed to understand that. And this is why yeah, I mean, here Lale Bakhtiar is saying that this particular quotation is taken from Sayyid Hussain Nazar's writing, and he is saying that if we are focusing on spiritual development and moral healing, then yes, you needed to find out the space. What is space? Space is where our earth is floating. Space is where our sun is floating. The space is where, of course, in between moon sky and our earth sky, we have all this, ring of air and then ether, all sorts of, those are the space. So we are talking about here, he's saying that what flows through them are more significant. So we have a channel. We have a channel through which things move. Emphasis is on a space that flows through the channels as the place of the soul and spirit. Macrocosm, the book of horizons, and the microcosm, book of signs. This ayah which tell us about that. Sanurihim ayatina fil afaq wa fi anfusihim hatta yatabayyana lahum annahul haq. We will cause them to see our signs on the horizons and within themselves until it becomes clear to them that it is al-haq. So everywhere is al-haq, in me and outside. So how I attune myself all the time with al-haq, God will give us sign. And he said that we give signs in outside, which is al-afaq, and we give signs inside. So this Enneagram helps us to read that sign. And he said that afaq is the sign which is see through these 12 zodiacs. That is what he's saying. And he's saying that here the universe composed of macrocosm and microcosm, body, jisim, soul, spirit, and then corresponding jisim is the jisim kulli, universal body. Nafs kulli is the universal nafs. Ruh kulli is the universal ruh, the ruh al-azam. And how you connect it, of course, I referred a book, this Horizon of Being, this Muqaddama Kaisari, that has details about Ruh Kulli, the Ruh al-Azam, Nur Muhammadi is there. So we'll go into those are different aspects of the spiritual science. But for us, just we need to know how we connect um, this macro, no, micro with macro, how you connect it, what sort of meditation and zikr you have to do, what names you have to invoke, and those are the details she provided in these handbooks. So proximity to the center and moving toward the center within the microcosmic self is a measure of moral health, while movement away from it to the circumference is a sign of moral imbalance. And this is the key thing we have to understand, that proximity to the center. The more we are going towards the center, the better it is. Of course, ultimate objective is to be at the center, and moving toward the center within the microcosmic self, which is us, is a measure of moral health, which movement, while movement away from it to the circumference is a sign of moral imbalance. So you have to understand which way you are moving. Are you moving towards the center or away from the center? As soon as you understand that, of course, you are in control. And now we are saying that in the center is the Kaaba. The sign of the presence of Allah is the Kaaba, the place of spiritual heart, the throne of Allah. Hazrat Ibn Arabi, rahmatullah alayhi, he quotes the sacred tradition of the messenger. He said that my heavens and my earth embrace me not, but the heart, consciousness, nafs mulhama of my believing servant does embrace me. So we all know this hadith. So, but that is the is shown in the diagram as you see here. All these sides, we'll have a lot of mathematics around it. We'll discuss those later. But here, just to picture this idea that this enneagram we are working, that is the symbol of heart. So to embrace Allah means to have experiential knowledge of Allah according to spiritual chivalry. So chivalry is the struggle, and then chivalry is our basically, you know, that book by Ibn al-Hussein al-Sulami. He wrote The Way of Sufi Chivalry, Futua. So Futua is our struggle to achieve Murua, which is the moral healing. So here Lale Bokhtiyar gives so much details about it, how you do the futua. So using enneagram is the one of the tool we will be using to practice futua, chivalry. This experiential knowledge leads to sensation of the presence of Allah in all that one does, manifested as a grace, spirit, or intellect. In this state, the spiritual heart becomes the throne of God. So when your heart is aware of the presence of Allah in all thing you do and all thing you see, all thing you hear, if you feel that presence of Allah, then of course your heart is where the throne of God is. And that's what he's talking about, um, that you develop this tahqiq. And here, this Quranic verse, وَكَانَ عَرْشُهُ عَلَى الْمَاءِ لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. And this is what here Ibn Arabi is referring us to, is saying that when you do, you pass this test, لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا, that when your heart become arsh, because Quran says that. He said that the throne of God has been upon the waters so that he may try you, which of you is the fairest and just. You know, we are talking about bringing justice in our life. If you achieve that, then of course your heart become arsh Allah. And that's what our objective is. And that's what this Quranic verse say. Anyway, this is now we are going back to the self, Quranic psychology. Here, concept of religion. Again, Nakib Al-Attas, this Malaysian philosopher, she is quoted quite many times in this book. So he is quoted here. Concept of religion and foundation of ethics and morality. In order to achieve good character, the intellect must be trained in deliberate thinking and reflection. So that's what we are doing. We are training our intellect. Only when this has been accomplished can it realize wisdom. The faculty of desire, shahwa, when disciplined, will realize temperance. So shahwa, when it disciplined, you will be able to achieve temperance. Faculty of anger, when trained, will attain courage. You see, we need both. We need to convert shahwa to temperance and gadab or anger to make it courage. So when desire and anger are subordinated to intellect, justice is realized, and the mean is then to be achieved by these two bodily faculties after they have been trained and disciplined by the reason. You see, that is the thing. We have to train and discipline those two faculty we have been given. He goes on to say, this is Nakib al-Attas, injustice is the putting a thing in place not its own. It is to misplace a thing. It is to misuse or to wrong. It is to exceed or fall short of the mean or limit. So you see how injustice is defined? It is to suffer loss. It is deviation from from the right course. It is disbelief of what is true or lying about what is true, knowing it to be true. Thus, when a man does an act of injustice, it means that he has wronged his own soul, for he has put his soul in a place not its own. He has misused it. He has made it to exceed or fall short of its real nature. He has caused it to deviate from what is right and to repudiate the truth and to suffer loss. All that he has thus done in one way or another entails a violation of his covenant with God, because you accepted God as that Rabbu alastu birabbikum qalu bala. So that agreement, that covenant is violated if you do injustice. I wonder why Naqib Attas said these words, because I found that his root is in Yemen. He's a Yemeni, and that's why Yemen is the only nation standing for the injustice in Palestine. I can't believe that here even he is teaching us, the Yemeni teaching us how to deal with injustice in your own self. And then, of course, here another person who is also working for justice is an Iranian, is Mullah Sadr. He's saying the soul originates with the body and subsist in the spiritual. The soul is the isthmus between body and spirit. So this is the inner knowledge we need to apply. And yeah, so I am almost getting there. Sorry, we have too much material today. So I will, this is my last slide, I think. Here it talks about Alaq, which is four humors. Here he's saying that this one, I just wanted to mention that by balancing four humors, we bring balance in our temperament. And that's what Ibn Sina said it, Ghazali said it, and then why we are calling akhlat as opposed to alak when Quran says for humors means alak, and in Tibbal Nafs, the book it says akhlat, because what I have been told here is that it was Greek, the medical text were translated from Greek to Arabic, and it was done by a Christian person. His name is Hunayn ibn Ishaq, and he was not familiar with Quranic terminology. So because it's a kind of mixture, so he called it akhlaq, because it is a kind of mixture. How you know it, there is a test done by Swedish physician, and he actually for humors he basically he took a blood and then he made it settle and these sediments separated into those four layers, and those four layers, yellow bile, red bile, black bile, those are various four layers. And I'll release all this document in our shared drive, these slides, then you can read it yourself. So with conclusion is establish justice inside and outside. Self justice is psychoethics. Social justice is socioethics, and of course your connection to divine connection, self to self is psychoethics, self to others, we say those 30 obligations from this prophetic hadith, social justice, and our covenant with Allah, that you are our Lord, and maintaining that commitment is the theoethics. So goal is to become zero, and then, of course, the faculty, desirous shahwa. When disciplined, we realize the temperance. And when we discipline the anger and train it, it becomes courage. With those two, we can bring justice. So, with that note, I conclude my session, my lecture. Thank you. Sorry. I think we have only 15 minutes to discuss. Sidi Joshua, you have anything to say? And anyone else has any question?
I missed the last portion because I had to pause for dhuhr, but I wonder if anybody else has anything to say before I say anything.
I just wanted to say thank you for the explanation, because when the last session, when you talk about the bringing the justice to self, I felt like it's just like ringing in my head. How do I bring justice to myself? Like we never think about we think about the justice happening outside in the world, right? Like I see it how it is happening in Palestine and different part of the world. Bringing it to our own self, like what injustice am I doing to myself that I need to um so that was like a huge question for me, but I think this one is like is just the tip of an iceberg. I see.
Yes, that's beautiful understanding. Yes, because as you see, bringing justice to us is linked to the whole world, whole cosmos. And as you see, everything we do is related to justice, and that's why, um, of course, Adam did that prayer, Rabbana zulumna anfusana, and
Mhm.
then, of course, all realization related to justice. Yeah. So yeah, I covered it. I think most of the slide today, as you'll see, I covered the justice component.
Hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, one thing I will say on this point that just kind of feels relevant to me, or it's a question that I think comes to my mind frequently when thinking about the topic of justice, is there's for example, the difference between like a Christianity and Islam, right? Is that the Prophet ﷺ brought he was a legislative prophet, or legislative revelation that he brought, right? He brought a Sharia, and this is something that like you don't get with Isa alayhi salam, right? And so um, whereas his message was maybe a bit more spiritual in nature, the message of the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was totally balanced between being absolutely spiritual but also totally worldly, in the sense of giving us a way, a sunnah of how to navigate life and establish justice both within ourselves and and outside in the world. And I think that sometimes, especially when we deal with the work of Ibn Arabi, there's this it's a challenge sometimes to discern, when do you when do you say no, maybe, or when do you have to pull back on the reins on your
Mm,
nafs, or, because sometimes there are certain interpretations which say, oh, well, all things are reconciled in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's rahmah, right? And so if we just have enough mercy or enough love within ourselves to encompass those things, right, then they can be reconciled. But sometimes it's also necessary that we have to discipline the horses, or discipline ourself in a way, so that it doesn't lead us somewhere that's going to ultimately harm us, right? And so it's that balance between, I think, when you talk about we doing the work within ourselves, and then that emanating out into the world, it's that fine balance between, I know that I need to have compassion with myself, like Allah has compassion with me, and at the same time that there's a certain parenting that we have to do, and
mm.
a certain, that's why there's a sharia. That's why there are certain limits to what we can and cannot do. And I think that it's an important thing to always, in these conversations, call to mind, or highlight, is that there are guidelines, right, that we can rely upon, and they're actually, and that is a form of rahma. The sharia is a rahma, because we don't have to create our own sharia, and I think we live in a time when everybody's looking to do that. So that's something that I contemplate a lot. I don't know if that's something that other people share, but that balance between the softness and openness, and also the awareness of the need to have limits, you know. So
What reminded me of what you said is like in coaching, we teach people to speak truth with compassion. So like speak your truth, but with
yeah,
compassion. So sometimes we become bitter when we are speaking the truth, or we feel like it's our truth, and it lands not very like compassionately to the other person. So we teach them like, hey, speak your truth with compassion. So how can you bring compassion in what you're sharing with yourself also? Like, how can you be compassionate to yourself and
right,
call yourself out when we are actually, because our nafs wants to find leeway, like it wants to find cracks to find its ways. So we just need to say, hey, no, 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 this is not how it's going to go. Come back. But how do we
well,
say it without being have a whiplash? It's like hitting a moment
yeah,
saying being compassionate. That's what I understood what you're sharing, and it definitely resonates.
yeah, and especially in like a cultural, or like religious context, where we have, a lot of, sometimes the loudest voices are the ones that are the most polarizing, right?
Yeah.
And with the neo-traditional movement and such, sometimes there's a bit of an emphasis upon the severity, right?
Mm,
Versus, but how to find that balance, like City Noor is talking about. How do we find the
yeah.
middle? How do we
The
always find that center
justice.
point? Exactly, that's the justice.
Yeah. And then okay, so one of the things that also come to me, because I'm one of those people who are most of the time get to the one extreme to other extreme, because I'm really like I'm sure everybody is like, we want justice and fairness and how it's not fair. But sometimes I feel like even this desire for fairness is not fair, because not everything is fair in the world. But why I'm always looking for this this justice, and then it just consumes me, and instead of being used by it, I'm being consumed by it. So it
Right.
takes away the power instead of giving me power to stand for something. Then I have to like
Mm,
back off, and then because I'm being consumed by the desire for justice, for fairness, for equality, which I do not see in the world. So I'm not sure Sidi Noor is going to teach us about the ways to like bring that kind of balance within myself, to be okay, to understand the wisdom, um, and also still stand for justice within
mm,
myself and other. Because I feel like the more I get consumed, I'm actually being unjust to myself. I'm not in the place where I'm supposed to be.
yeah, yeah. I think it comes back to being
Yeah,
able to,
yeah. I
yeah. So
just
that,
wanted to respond to that one. Sometime the whole world injustice. Um, I feel so helpless, and what I need to do. So there, I found this verse. It's called "Don't concern yourself."
Mm,
Wala takfu ma laysa laka bihi ilmun. ولا تقف ما ليس لك به علم إن السمع والبصر والفؤاد كل أولئك كان عنه مسؤولا. Surah Isra, ayat number 36. It says, never concern thyself with anything of which thou hast no knowledge. Verily, thy hearing and sight and heart, all of them will be called to account for it on Judgment Day. So basically, if I focus too much of the world as opposed to me, I am doing injustice.
mm,
And that's what he's saying, that don't concern yourself, right? You go, do you see this verse referring to? It's saying that God will ask you to question your sama, wal basar, wal fuad. These three faculty. Are you giving too much of it to the outside or too much of inside? Which one you are doing? Are you bringing balance? That's what I would suggest. I don't know whether it helped me to stay away too much
Mm.
from the other side to this side, and to bring balance.
Mm.
Mm.
What ayah was that,
definitely.
Sidi?
It's 36,
Surah Isra.
1736.
MashaAllah. Yeah, that's beautiful. Beautiful reminder.
Isra 1736. It says, "Wala takfu ma laysa laka bihi ilmun." And then he give these faculty names: Sam'a wal Basara wal Fuad. Kullu
Yeah.
ulaika kana anhum mas'ula. Everything is this mas'ula, this responsibility. Yeah.
Mm.
Mm,
So what I understand, like what you're saying is based on this ayah, because I feel like I'm get confused, I get consumed by it, then I have to like turn off all my social media. I just literally delete everything, and then I'm like bring my balance, and then when I go back and I feel get sucked into, I feel like I do that all the time. So I have currently deleted all my social media app from my phone because it's too much. I couldn't function in my daily life. So I felt like it's injustice. So what you're saying is that Allah is telling us to do not to concern too much that is one is not in our control and we don't have fully knowledge of,
mm,
but focus on what we actually have control within ourselves, bring justice here, and
mm.
that will emanate outward. But if I cannot even balance within myself, how can I even bring? I'm not good for anything. Like can't I have to just uh, keep balancing consume unconsume, so I'm just stuck in that loop. I don't know how to, like I have to break through that, and that's the access.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
yeah. Just ponder on this verse
Yeah,
until it comes to
thank
you,
you.
and slowly you'll get there.
I also wanted to comment that it seems like that, in Islam, Allah is only asking us to submit. Allah is not asking us to control, change, create. Allah is not really
Yeah.
asking us to do anything except submit. And as humans, it seems like that's the hardest thing to do. You
Mm,
know, we want to be in control, whatever semblance
Mm.
of control we think we have or we can have, that's what we hold on to,
Yeah.
and it's scary to think about, what submission really means. I remember reading a book by a convert, Jeffrey Lang, in his book, Even Angels Ask. I think it was that one, or Struggling to Surrender. In one of those books at the end, he mentioned how the first time he did sujood, that was like the hardest thing for him to do, was do sujood. As a Western person, to put your head on the ground, you know, was like, he talked about how difficult it was. And I realized myself that, I feel strange, growing up in the West, praying and, praying Salah in public. Like if I pray in my office, I shut the door. I don't really want everybody to see me praying. I don't think I've ever prayed standing up and actually making sujood on an airplane or airport or mall or any public place. I don't think I've ever done that. And I think the reason is that just putting your head on the ground in that ultimate form of submission, seems really difficult in front of other people, especially people who you think are going to judge you, who you think are going to be strange, let alone doing it privately by yourself in a room before God. Like, as born Muslims, we just do it automatically because we were raised with it. We grew up watching people do sujood our whole life. So we don't really think anything of it. I never really thought anything of it. But then I realized after reading his story and how difficult it was for him to make that, position of submission. And I realized, well, I guess he's right because, I don't do it in front of other people. I don't do it in public. I feel kind of strange if I'm doing sujood in my office and somebody walks by, they're going to think, oh, like, what is she doing? Like, what's wrong with her? Why is she like putting her head on the ground? It seems like kind of a, difficult thing, subhanAllah. Yeah.
I resonate with that a lot because as a convert revert, and having expressed interest in this deen at an early age, I was afraid of being, and especially around the time of 9/11, I was afraid of being like physically, somebody assaulting me or something physically for expressing any kind of outward, um, solidarity or expression of the faith, right? And I still, if I'm getting better about it as I get older, but still, if it's time for prayer and I'm out in public, I I look for obviously, I think there's something to be said about discretion, but I still, it's vulnerability, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and
Yeah.
also it's a total, of course, we're so, I mean, like what you're saying, the sujood, the submission and the sujood, but then also just socially, culturally, what does it mean, to do that? It also means, hey, I'm totally vulnerable in this moment. If somebody wanted to come and attack me, they could, but I'm actively choosing to stop everything that I'm doing and give all of my attention to God in this moment, and it's almost like it can also be seen as a form of dawah, because you don't see people in this culture doing that out in public for the most part. And so it's like a positive disruption almost too, but it takes so much. That's the other element of what Sidina was talking about with this, the development of the soul, right? Justice, temperance, and courage as well, right? How do we develop courage in a healthy way? I think that's a big part of it for me too, at least.
Yeah. Those are Sharia stuff, especially what you do when this prayer time is passing or you are feeling the urge to submit. So you find creative ways. Basically, there are many rukhsat in Sharia. You don't have to stand. You can do prayer in a sitting situation as well. And also, you can, sometime I just go to the park. I just take a bench and I do this is a sujood on my palm.
Yeah, I mean, that's
Yeah.
the point.
So
try
those
to
sort of,
do it
but main thing is I am connecting because the time for prayer is time to connect myself, to align. So some of the Sharia aspect, I have to compromise because I don't have a mosque or I don't have a place to pray. In those cases, yes, just taking a corner in the office. Yes, some people will know it and you can't escape it. And if they know it, what is the problem? No problem. And
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think we find creative ways or discrete ways to meet our obligations. But my point is just openly doing it, like Joshua was saying, it kind of exposes your vulnerability in the eyes of people, right? But even to do it alone, just between you and God, as humans, sometimes it's difficult.
Yeah,
right?
for hikmah reason, you're allowed to hide it. For hikmah reason.
Yeah.
So you are allowed to hide it. So anyway, I think we are over the hour. So hopefully we got something out of this session today. And
Awesome.
many thanks for joining, Alhamdulillah, and really enjoying your company.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you,
Thank you
Sabina.
so much.
Thank you, Sabina.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum
Walaikum
assalam.
Sidi
Yeah,
Noor,
yeah.
do you have a few moments to stick on the call?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Let's see.